Welcome. My name's Annah Lee. I'm the Director of Artistic Programs at Artspace in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'm here today with artist Taylor McGee. And Taylor is also a core member of our education team at Artspace. She's our education administrative assistant. And also joining us today is Susanne Portanova, who's an artist in the area and participated in the North Carolina Mail-In Gallery that Taylor launched at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic back in March. I'm here to throw out questions and help facilitate this conversation, but my hope is that today we'll get some insights from both Taylor and Susanne about not only their experiences with this project in particular, but also some insights into how they as practicing artists have been dealing with the challenges and I'll say blessings of this situation that we find ourselves in. So Taylor, I'm going to start with you just so that you can give us a little bit more background on how the project came about and your experience so far with it.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So like you said, I guess it was back in March when we went into, or the pandemic started and we kind of went into quarantine, and I started working from home. And so I had kind of, I think like a lot of people, I had a lot of extra time on my hands being at home. And I saw on Instagram, or, I was just kind of paying attention to how this was affecting the art world, right? So with galleries closing and studios closing and people being at home, I was really curious as to how are artists going to respond, and how are the spaces that have artists, their work or their studios, what were they going to do to continue connecting artists and connecting people with art? And so I saw a couple places did virtual galleries, and Artspace, we did the Fresh Show online a while ago, and I saw this project kind of was coming up in different places, or this idea of like mail-in art, and some people were doing it internationally, but I just thought that was such a cool idea. And so having kind of this extra time on my hands, I was like, oh, that sounds fun, like I want to try that out. So I decided to sort of like put together this little project idea. But I wasn't just necessarily interested just in the mail-in art. Kind of the other side of that to me was with artists losing access to possibly studio spaces or not being able to get certain materials shipped to them. What did that mean for the kind of work they could make? And I, personally, at Artspace, I was writing these projects that people could do at home. So I was just thinking a lot about, alternative material use. And if we're going to do a weaving project, but you don't have yarn, well, what can you use instead? So those questions were kind of going on in my mind. And so that was the other piece I wanted to bring to it, was not just being able to connect in this time of isolation, but also the innovation part. So how are artists, and Susanne will speak on that, as a ceramic artist, if you have clay or you can't fire your work, what does that mean? And at that time, we had no idea how long this was going to last. So I was just really curious, how are they processing it? And that was kind of the prompt I threw out was, how are you going to be innovative in your response with your art to this pandemic during isolation? And then being able to bring that together, still connect artists from our community. We had a lot of people respond from North Carolina, but then also across the United States. So did get submissions from California, Chicago, Virginia, and Georgia, I think, as well. So it was just cool to see, how even in a time when people were being asked to stay home, they were not only creating, but then being able to connect through social media. So yeah.
It's fascinating. I mean, it's been something I've been in close dialogue with a number of artists during the course of this experience. And yeah, all of the things that you just brought up, the sort of the limitations in terms of material and space, and then that paired with having a surplus of time has been an interesting problem, and it's been this project has been a gift for me as someone who curates shows and works closely with artists to sort of be able to sort of see that manifest in a concise way in a show. And we'll come back to sort of that and how people can engage. But Susanne, I do want to talk to you and about what about the project drew your attention, and also to talk about what it is that you ended up producing.
Well, first of all, we all are in different circumstances, and I was up in Boston with my mom. She is in hospice, so dealing with emotionally where I was in,
Right.
this came as a welcomed surprise, and kind of like, I can do something else than what I'm doing my routine. But I talked to Taylor and I said, of course I want to do this, but I don't have clay. I don't have my kiln. I don't have my glazes. And I said, what am I to do? And I said, oh, no, I'm not going to let this go, because I want to honor what Taylor came up with. I want to honor her energy in saying that there's always art. There's always freedom to express yourself. And I said, you know what, what am I doing here in Boston? Well, I'm going through boxes and I'm going through papers and I'm finding treasures that I said, well, I can do something with this. So I was recycling in a way. And that is but I still incorporated my pottery in it, because I said, no, I'm true to my work. So I even had my husband send me some things from North Carolina to Boston so that I would have the elements that I needed. But mostly everything else I found, be it my grandmother's thread or my mother's yarn or old paint from the house that I grew up in. I tried, it had all separated, so I had to reconstitute it, and it was like that. So to me, this was more of a sensory experience of, I know I'm not in the place where I want to be. I'm not in North Carolina with my spouse, and that's why I titled it, It Takes Two, that I could still rekindle and nurture something really nice and beautiful and true to me. And that was the gift of this exhibit. So that's what I did.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's inspiring. And I've felt, I'll say, someone I've always thought of myself more as a maker and someone who likes to have creative practice as part of something I do. I've felt much more of an impulse as of late while being at home, being in a sort of limited environment with fewer distractions. You know, inspiration abounds, and it's nice to push yourself through that. And it is a very different process for someone who's a practicing artist to establish processes. And
it's like I had my clay, but I couldn't work with clay, but I had to work with wood. I had to work with paint. I used my dad's penknife. I used real meaningful things to create my own symphony in a way of saying, and I was so proud of, and the words too, why I did it. Everything just flowed beautifully. It was just like a symphony in a way. Yeah, to me. Yeah, it was really sweet. Yeah.
And it's interesting you mentioned the use of words in the work. I saw that Taylor, as a common thread amongst, because you had about 20 artists participate from across the country, as you'd mentioned, and there was a lot of text in work, more than I would see, and it's a small collection of works, sure, but I've been involved in a number of group shows, and I'd say that was of interest to me, that the impulse to turn to text, given this prompt. Would you agree with that, or do you have any thoughts towards that?
I'm glad you're saying that, because that is one of the things that I do now, is a great deal with words and text, because they are so powerful and so beautiful, and can also be very hurtful, and you have to be very precise how you say it and when you say it. So that's what I deal with a great deal right now in my current work. But Taylor, what do you think with all that text? I'm glad, though, you mentioned that, Sarah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess that's not now that you say that, and I'm thinking,
No.
like, yeah, text did pop out quite a bit in that response. And I mean, I don't know, I found myself journaling or kind of taking lots of notes through this time, and I think, you know, text is another way people kind of process.
Yeah.
And it could be too. I mean, it kind of reminds me, because I know one work, like, she actually clipped from newspaper articles, and just in this time, like, we've been seeing so much text. I mean, that's been coming in with headlines and information changing every day. So that is a really interesting point, that it's almost like visually we're processing that, but yeah, the way they kind of layered that in the work.
Yeah.
And text, how a letter, how many lines, how many dots, or whatever. What is art in the letter A or the letter E? You know, where is the text to read a word, but also where's the art in that? Where's the line of the art?
Right. Yeah.
It's really good. That's
is.
another show. That's another show, Taylor.
Absolutely. And I'll say one of the things, and I do want to turn and talk a little bit about how people can experience this show. So obviously, we've been talking about how individual artists have had to grapple with this. As an art institution, Artspace, you know, we've also faced a number of challenges, and mainly the fact that we've had our engagement with our audience has had to go almost entirely virtual. We are in a position now, and let me back up for a moment there. Initially, when Taylor approached me with this project, our plan was, well, by June 1st, we'll be back up and running, and we'll have, have an opening June, and it'll be great, and people will be ready to reflect. Well, obviously, things didn't work out that way, and we still remain closed to the public in the sense that we don't have regular open hours that people can drop in. That said, we have dedicated a space on the second floor in our community gallery that's housed in what was Studio 206.
Okay.
Some editing there, our tech whizzes. Yeah, in Studio 206, we've housed the show, and it is something we are going to start really promoting, the fact that people can come in for tours. We currently also have a show up by a Durham-based artist, Kelly Johnston, who has been a regional resident at Artspace. And many, many more artists have been utilizing their studio spaces as we've sort of settled into this new way of life. And so I would encourage anyone listening to this interview who's interested in seeing the mail and gallery work to please contact us at Artspace NC, direct message through Instagram. Feel free to contact me, Annah Lee. My email is alee@artspacenc.org, and we can arrange a time to meet. But also just keep in touch with us through those social media channels, because we are hoping that we'll at least have some open hours starting at the end of August on a regular basis, where people can just come in a more relaxed fashion. We are requiring the use of masks for people in the building, but we've also expanded our disinfection of the space. We have hand sanitizers throughout the building, and most of our studio artists are sort of having a closed door policy while they're working, and you can either directly contact them through information you can find outside their studios, or many of them are also inviting visitors in as long as they use a mask. So it's a little bit, Artspace feels a little bit different now. It's a slightly altered experience, but we certainly encourage and hope that people come and see this work, because it really is exciting to see it together. So, I mean, I guess one of the things that struck me, obviously, through actually assembling the works together and getting them hung, was the use of text, as we've already picked up on. But I think also that the fact that your prompt came through, Taylor, in an interesting way, and the use of materials, and certainly in your work, Susanne, that's very apparent. But there were a number of really interesting materials that came up. I know you'd mentioned the newspaper. Were there other pieces that stood out to you as really sort of surprising you in the way that the artist sort of responded to the prompt?
I mean, we had Jennifer Markowitz submit a few pieces that were her embroidery work. So she did a hand embroidered mask, and then also these really beautiful hand embroidered flowers on wire. So that was really exciting as well to see that use of fibers. Being a fiber artist, that was exciting to me. And yeah, like you said, I mean, there was a lot of collage. There was a lot of some digital work as well. Brett Morris, actually, he painted on what it looks to me as a cut from like a cereal box or, you know, cardboard box that you would use. And I really love that because, again, like just being in your home and kind of surrounded by what you would consider mundane and that you just use all the time, and then to turn, you know, to paint on top of that and layer over that and, you know, elevate that to art is awesome too. So yeah, those are some of the things that come to my mind for sure. And then Suzanne's piece, obviously, and her husband Nick submitted a piece as well. And he's a painter, but he found an old piece of, I don't know if it was sold, but he painted on wood. So that was kind of unexpected too, I guess, because I was like, oh yeah, I guess you could find a small canvas, but he salvaged a piece of wood and created a painting on that. So yeah, there was a lot of materials.
Is that the piece that's very sort of geometric forms and saturated colors? There's lots of black and white, but then there's also saturated pops of color. Oh, I really enjoyed that piece. I didn't make the connection. That's cool.
Yeah. It's a busy gallery in this little house.
Yeah, I bet. So are you, Suzanne, are you back home now?
I am. I came home middle of June, quarantined, and then got going in July again. So I am slowly getting back to what I love to do.
Well,
well, thank you.
So what does that look like back to what you love to do? Do you have access to a kiln at home?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. My kiln works. My kiln works. I'm so grateful. I need to, I work out of a studio in Cary, so they have everything, but I'm also having to be bolder and go out there in the community or online and order things, which I usually don't do. But I'm becoming quite minimal, just because I can, and I really like that avenue of becoming truer to the clay, and letting it express itself through me.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
You're really using it as an opportunity for growth, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I'd like to collaborate more. I'm finding that I need more inspiration. I go through Instagram all the time trying to find different avenues. Oh, what would be good? What would be that? But I think the human conversation, I think I'm ready for some interaction and some communication, even with a mask on. I welcome it. Because being one with clay all the time is awesome, but you also need to you need to kickstart yourself again so that you know where you belong in your community. Yeah,
it's so important. That's the biggest lesson I've taken through this is how much I value connection and unity. It's everything.
And Anna, thank you for doing this. I've been actually going through some of the older interviews, which I hope everybody does, just because it's interesting how you communicate. Your questions have become, I love your questions have become better and better because we're all learning. No, we're all learning. I said, like, what can I learn from Anna? So you gave me that opportunity to say, I don't do Zoom all the time, but I'm intrigued. So please, I encourage everybody to go back and check out Artspace, other artist interviews. They're really beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And it's become a series. I'm trying to do one every day during the week.
I love it.
yeah, once I got okay and accepted my discomfort with the technology,
Yeah.
it came back to exactly what we're talking about. Like it
Yeah.
is a really useful tool for maintaining connections and
Yeah.
having conversations and all of that. It's wonderful. So I'm glad you've enjoyed that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Well, Taylor, I want to come back to you since, so how, in one of those conversations was with you, so we've already discussed this a little bit, so I don't feel like I'm putting you on the spot too much.
Oh.
But you are a practicing artist, as we mentioned, a textile artist, mainly.
Yes.
I mean, would you consider yourself a weaver? Is that how you identify, or is it broader than that?
I love everything. Yes, like weaving right now, I would say, is my primary medium, and what I have tried to incorporate, like if I do use other mediums, I try to somehow relate it back to the fiber and the weaving.
Right.
So yeah.
So how has the experience of quarantine affected your personal practice, or has it? Because, well, I'll stop there.
No, oh, that's fine. Yeah, so I mean, I'm fortunate that I do have a little kind of studio space in my apartment, and I have my floor loom at home with me. So I do have that space to create at home. And I'll say when this all started, I had like this just crazy energy, and I was like, there's so much time and I'm here. And I made a list of projects, and I was like super active, and I was like, yeah, I want to do this mailing gallery thing. And I was releasing little tutorials on my Instagram, like little weaving projects with a cardboard loom, and different things you could like do around your house, making little wrapped rainbows. I mean, it was just like just fun little stuff, which was really fun for me. I think it kept me motivated each week, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna release this project and share it with people and hopefully encourage them to be creative, and kind of in turn that kept me motivated to continue being creative. And yeah, I did that for probably like a month or so. And then this kept going. And then I just hit this, like, I just got drained, I think. Kind of hit this like slump where I felt this like just lack of creative energy. And I don't know if that's because I just like kind of went for it so much at the beginning, and I like just brained myself, and I think part of it was just sort of the weight of everything eventually. It just, as it kind of was going on longer and longer, we're like, okay, we're not really coming out of this. And now there's this level of uncertainty that's continuing. I think it kind of was beginning to become draining for me. But what I've sort of discovered even in that, because for me, like, I don't like I feel like when I'm not doing something, like I'm being so unproductive, but I had to kind of like let myself be okay with that and let that go and say, like, this is actually a really good opportunity to just like listen and just explore on my own without that pressure. I think I felt this pressure, like I had to come out of this with like a new body of work or something, like I've got to come out of this with 10 new amazing weavings. But I kind of realized, I was like, no, it's okay to just like explore right now. It's okay to lay low. And that's what I have recently been trying to do. I've kind of pulled out my cardboard loom again. So like a little lap loom, tapestry loom. And I'm just playing with different materials, incorporating found objects, and just processing some of the things happening in our world and in my personal life and those experiences, and trying to just go back to those basics, I think, and be okay with exploring and learning and listening myself. And I am getting to do a residency at Meredith College starting this fall. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think it's been a good time to just prepare for that as well. Kind of like stop what I've been doing and really focus on like what I want to do going forward. So that's what I've been trying to use this time to do. In addition to, I've been teaching this week with the summer camp at Artspace, and that's just kind of like rekindling that love of teaching and sharing art. So yeah, I think going forward, I definitely, I want to teach more. I'd like to do the tutorials again. Yeah, just bring it all together again.
I just want to say to Taylor that where I've known you now for good years. I've known you. I feel like you're a true friend and part of the family. But what you've accomplished and what your energy and what you're willing to do is I'm so proud of you. It's so awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
We are so very lucky to have Taylor on the
Yep.
Artspace stuff. I cannot tell you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all you have to say.
I can't put words to how valuable she's been, especially.
Oh,
It's wonderful. But yeah, I mean, the thing that you just touched on, Taylor, that I've found so interesting through, I think it's come up in every talk I've done with artists, is that this almost, I want to say, existential crisis that this experience has put on artists, and that's overly dramatic, but I've heard again and again from people that, I don't know what to do when I don't have a deadline looming. Like, like I had 4 shows lined up and they're all gone. Like, what do I do? And what I found to be really difficult is there's this panic mode.
Yeah.
And then an acceptance,
Right.
and then it becomes this amazing opportunity to experiment and just take the pressure off. And I can't tell you how excited I am to see where things end up at the end of this with all of these artists, because I do truly think as much suffering and pain, and I don't mean to undermine that in any way, of this experience, there really is a gift in it and an opportunity. And I think in particular with artists, and it's just reaffirmed my respect and knowledge of their absolute importance for all of us. So
I would love, Anna, to see that this conversation in a group community setting where we could talk about this. I would encourage it, because it is so rich with energy and direction that is needed to really hone in on as artists. And it's, again, yes, silver lining.
Yeah.
What is art? What can art do for us? How it can heal, how it can speak. It is just an amazing tool.
It is. And I guarantee you, I mean, that's something for me as someone who's more of an administrator, that I've been thinking a great deal about, I need to really set aside more time for the things I've said I've wanted to do for years, which are more sort of, whether if it's facilitated or not, conversations amongst artists, and just more community, opportunities to just come together and share experiences. And so, I've made a commitment to myself and to Artspace that's something that will be happening as we
And I would also almost do like a round table or a conversation with not just the people who are not artists, but they may be poets, or I meant people who are collecting, or people who are interested in art but choose not to do art. They may do gardening instead, but they could be inspired by what we offer. And I think that salon, that type of sharing and has an opportunity. It's a good timing or an opportunity to develop.
It is. Yeah, I would agree. I actually just had a conversation with an artist in Raleigh.
Yeah.
She's brand new to Artspace, Barbara Gary.
Yeah.
And she's been helping to facilitate what really started as a crit night program in the area. But the way she was describing it is that they are open to everyone. Like, you don't have to necessarily be an active artist or involved. Like, it's about that. It's about, I mean, of course there is the critique component to it as well, but that it was important to her that be opened up to everybody, because it's such useful dialogue. It's very powerful, and there's a lot to learn there, whether you're using it towards an artistic practice or just your own personal growth. So
thank you. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. Taylor, do you have any last minute thoughts that we didn't touch on in terms of the Mail-In Art Gallery? I'll repeat what I said earlier in terms of how people can engage briefly, but I just want to make sure we don't end the conversation having missed a key point.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you for kind of facilitating this, and thanks for Susanne for joining in. Yeah, I think we talked about a lot of things. I'm just so excited to see it all together. I think it's been so many months, and like you said, it like we continue to just kind of like push it off because we're like, we don't know what's going on. And so the fact that like it's all together, and I stopped in Artspace and got a little sneak peek of it yesterday, all the workout, like it's heartwarming, you know, to see like how these responses have come in. And I know, having like read the stories behind the work, just the thought that was put into it, and to now have it all together in a physical space, it means a lot. So I'm very excited. And people can also, they can view the work in a virtual gallery as well. So it's on Instagram at Mailing Gallery NC. And then I also have a website, but there's the link in the bio on Instagram will link you right to the website, and you can read more about what each artist has written behind the work, learn a little bit about them as well. So those are just some other ways you can view it too.
Great.
Yeah.
And I will say, in relation to to that, our program coordinator, Brett Morris, has been, I would say, absolutely miserable since quarantine, because he loves installing exhibitions. I do too, but we're both very hands-on people. But I found sort of my outlet through these conversations. He is doing the most beautiful job on this installation. I can't tell you. I stopped in today, and I had to bite my tongue. Normally I would give him grief for how absolutely anal retentive he's gotten with this, but it looks phenomenal. I'm gonna give it to him, let him have the joy.
That's awesome.
So again, I would encourage anyone listening to this, if you're interested in seeing the show before we've posted regular open hours, please reach out to me. It's alee@artspacenc.org. You can send a direct message to our Instagram, ArtspaceNC, and we'll be happy to set up a time to give you a tour of the space. Susanne, how can people follow you?
Oh, on Instagram, dots and lines. What is it? Oh, dots and lines pottery.carry.nc.
All right, great. And
That's
Taylor,
that.
do you have a personal Instagram as well, Taylor, for your art practice? What's that?
Mine's at Taylor McGee Art. So
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you both so much for joining me today. I'm delighted, and stay tuned for more information about this show. We'll be doing lots of promotion through all of our various outlets. So keep eyes out, and I hope you get a chance to come down and see it.
Yes.
All right.